Do all video game movies have to suck? Stick around to find out. What's up, Universe, and welcome to the web's first must-see comic and nerd culture show. Welcome to Comic Universe. I'm your host today, C-Dubs. I'm coming to you riding solo. And I just got back watching the new Tomb Raider film for the second time. And I kind of have a new perspective on it. And I kind of wanted to talk to you guys a little bit about this movie. Now, video game movies have kind of known to suck. And it used to be that way for comic book movies. They just never were really that good up until probably about Blade. And then we started getting some good ones. But it seems like video game movies are just stuck. And I don't understand. And I don't think any of us can seem to really figure out what the problem is. But I think there's might be somewhat of a change here. I think the Tomb Raider film may have figured out a little bit of what the problem is. And has kind of found maybe a good medium. Now, initially, my first viewing on this film is... Now, this, real quick, the Tomb Raider film does take its inspiration from the new rebooted series. And anyone who knows me knows that I'm not a fan of that series. That's not my Tomb Raider. It feels too much like Nathan Drake and the Uncharted series, which, don't get me wrong, those are some of my favorite games of all time. Some of my fondest memories are playing with my best friend co-op in that game, especially in part 2. Absolutely love it. All of them, including the last one, with the two female protagonists. Love Uncharted completely. But Tomb Raider should be different, in my opinion. It always was, but not anymore. So I'm not a big fan of the new rebooted series. But I think that kind of took over when I first saw this film, and I really didn't like it. And I told a couple of guys, you know, it wasn't worth your time. And I kind of feel bad after seeing it a second time. And I actually really like it now. I kind of opened up a little bit about it, put my bias to the side, and realized that, you know, as a movie and as a video game movie, how is this movie? Now, it's not the greatest movie. The acting is decent and passable. The action, if you will, is good, you know. There are some changes to the story, even more so than the reboot, if you will. And I'm going to kind of try to stay away from a little bit of spoilers until a little further in the video. But, you know, this film, it does a really good job. I mean, it's the clothes that she wears is authentic to the video game, all the way down to the bandage on her arm. The tools and weapons that she uses in this game are pretty on point as well. In fact, there's even a part in this movie where, a couple of parts, where she actually has to figure out some puzzling. And you kind of feel like, I mean, they still could have been a little better, but you kind of feel like you're immersed in the movie and a part of her trying to figure out these puzzles, and that's absolutely awesome. It's a feature that most video game movies would never introduce into their movie. For, you know, some sort of an element to it. You know, Doom kind of did it at the end where it went first person for a second or two. But for the most part, video game movies don't really think of going into it. And if they do it, it's really cheesy. And I think this movie could have done it a little better. But I think overall, it's definitely a passable grade in how you feel immersed in the actual puzzles that she's figuring out, the riddles and the actual, you know, death traps, if you will, inside of the tomb that she's going in. And this is something I think that video game movies can actually kind of learn from. And you know, if you're looking at a horror movie, you know, what makes this game, you know, if you're like a Resident Evil or a Silent Hill, what made the game so creepy and so eerie? Try to find out what that was and put it into your movie. I think that's where the proving point is. And I know it sounds like common sense, but clearly it hasn't been for many, many years. Now, guys, I'm going to get into a little bit of spoilers. I kind of actually want to talk a little bit about the movie for all those who have seen it. And if you haven't seen it, please go see the movie and come back and talk with us. Me and DPZ, we're always in the comments. We constantly check and we love talking with you guys. We also have a Facebook page where we could love to continue the conversation and interact with you guys even more. Just remember, when you're looking for Comic Universe, it's with a YOU in the universe, guys. So anyway, guys, spoiler alert. Now, this movie, it starts with Laura. She has not come into her own yet. It's even further back than the game actually starts. Basically, her father has passed away 7 years prior to the date where the movie starts. Maybe not like on the anniversary date, but essentially 7 years prior, her dad died. At least to the world, they acknowledge the fact that he has died. To her, she refuses to believe that he is dead. So she has not taken on her rightful role or signed on the dotted line, basically, on the last will and testament of her father to take over the company and all the companies in which they own, and basically take over the Croft fortune. So she's kind of struggling. She's behind on some bills. We start off with her learning some MMA, and she gets her ass kicked. She gets choked out, basically. And throughout the film, that's kind of a little thing that kind of goes on. A rear naked choke is kind of happens in the film a couple of times, and it's just used as a tool to show that she's kind of growing as not just a fighter, but as a person. And that's actually turned out pretty cool for me, in my opinion. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But anyway, she's struggling. She's trying to make ends meet. She's basically working as a bicyclist through London, delivering packages and things like that. She's really hard on her luck. And all the bicyclists that work for this company, they decide they're going to play this game called Fox. And essentially what they do is they take a stuffed foxtail, tape it to the back of someone's bike, take a paint can, pop a hole in it, and the person that's the fox actually has to ride away and try to escape the rest of the bicyclists chasing her, like the hounds would chase a fox. Now, the paint and the purpose of the hole is it's leaking, obviously, everywhere she's going. So, obviously, they can't follow her scent, but they're able to follow the paint. The goal is to get the tail off of the back of the bike before the paint runs out. So, basically, whoever pulls the tail wins the money, and basically everyone chipped into this pot. And there's probably like a good maybe 20, 30 of these people chasing her. And if no one's able to pull the tail, she gets the money. So she was, I need to do this. So during this chase through London, she's evading everybody. And it's a really cool bicycle scene, a little good action. She outsmarts a couple of guys. She kind of has to push through and just power out and outmaneuver a couple of guys. And it's really cool. And then she kind of has this slight flashback. She sees someone that kind of looks like her dad, and boom, she ends up in an accident. She hits a car. I think it was a police car, actually. Flips over the hood, and she ends up getting arrested. And then this lady comes and bails her out. And at first, I was like, wait, is that her mom? Because we seen earlier that in a flashback, her mom had died. And her dad gave her this trinket as he was, going on a business trip, if you will. And he's like, as long as you have this, we'll always be close to you. So I was like, is this her mom? I was like, what the hell's going on? And it turned out it was actually like the CEO of the Croft companies, if you will. She kind of runs the business since her dad's passing, and since Laura Croft hasn't signed on the dotted line. So she basically convinces Laura that she has to go ahead and sign the dotted line so that she can kind of take her rightful place, and it will help her heal with, the passing of her dad. And so she shows up to the company, and with the lawyer, he's like, well, on the day of you signing, I was instructed to give you this. And he gives her a present, essentially, and it's a trinket that turns out to be a puzzle. And she really quick kind of solves the puzzle, and it turns out to be a riddle, and she figures out what the riddle means. So she ends up not signing the dotted line and ends up kind of running off and finding, she goes back to the Laura Croft Manor, which is beautiful. Looks like it's pulled right out of either game. It looks fantastic. And whether the old game or the reboot series, it looks fantastic. So she finds his hidden room, if you will. And it turns out that since her mom's passing, he's kind of turned into tomb raiding as a hobby to kind of fulfill the magic that he's lost with the passing of her mom. And he stumbled upon a story where there's this witch, or queen, if you will, that has the ability to kill with a touch of her finger, basically. She could kill anybody. And he believes that this creature is still alive today. And there's this other company of terrorists, if you will. I don't necessarily want to call them terrorists, but they kind of are. And I believe they're called the Trinity, if I remember correctly. And they are essentially out trying to find this artifact or find this tomb so that they can gain the power of whatever it was that this queen was able to do. And it's her dad's life mission to make sure that never happens. Now, when she finds all of his stuff in the hidden room, there's this cliche of the tape, please play this, and it plays, it's like, if you're seeing this, I am dead, please. And then he tells her, he's like, burn all of the information. Make sure they can never find it. Okay, because he's kind of been swerving them and feeding them fake hints and things like that. So she decides that she's going to sell the charm that is given to her to remember her parents for money to basically make it to the island where she believes her dad may still be. And the twist, again, spoiler alert, guys, the twist is it turns out her dad is not dead. He's actually on the island. I myself, as a traditional Tomb Raider fan, and even though I'm not a fan of the newer games, I did not like this part of the game, or this part of the movie. But it was okay. He was a good actor. It all turned out okay, I guess. But prior to her finding her dad, she ends up killing her first victim. And this is where the acting gets pretty good. She kind of shows in her face and her emotions after she kills her first. She basically chokes out. She strangles the first mercenary, if you will. And she starts crying and just like sobbing. And it was really believable. Unlike, Superman at the end of Man of Steel. It was kind of like that moment, but I think a lot better personally. I felt like she meant it a little more. Well, anyway, her dad's not dead, and we move on throughout the film, and we end up getting into the tomb, and she actually has to solve these puzzles and riddles and death traps. And I think it could have been done a little better, like it could have immersed us a little bit more, but it did a good job. I would give it a C grade if I was saying so. I felt like I was immersed a little bit into it, kind of how I do with the games. And I think if they really focus on that a little bit more, maybe if there's going to be a sequel, then I think we may have a genuine top contender for best video game movie adaptation, if they can find a good balance of that. Because honestly, right now, I still think maybe Mortal Kombat, the first Mortal Kombat, even though it hasn't aged very well, it still might be the best video game adaptation to film. This, though, I think might be in the top 5 or 3. It could even be number 2, to be honest with you. I feel that it really stuck pretty close to the new reboot story. And even though I'm not a fan of that, I commend that. And it did enough job, did its own thing as well, to where they were able to tell their own story and little changes here and there to make it a little unique, to kind of throw us, the fans, off course. Kind of like how Walking Dead used to do when it first started, introducing new characters and characters that aren't actually in the comic books, just to kind of throw us off, or where it's like, okay, this person should be dying here. They didn't die till like many pages or many issues or episodes later. So I think this movie found a good balance of that. And guys, there's a part in the film, though, this real spoiler alert, the ending, when they find the actual tomb and they find the queen, the witch, whatever you want to call her, turns out she had this disease that infected you with a touch, and almost instantly you started decaying, dying, and getting infected, and you saw it kind of coming through your veins. Honestly, kind of looked like the Venom ink in the Venom trailer going up Tom Hardy's veins. Kind of looks a little like that. But what's really crazy is, and this part I didn't kind of like, threw me out just for a few seconds. Even though I'm a huge zombie fan, they kind of turned into zombies. After dying, they kind of reanimated in kind of rage. I love zombie movies. Anything zombie I'm in for, but I just didn't see that coming, and it kind of took a step back. I was like, wait, what? But anyway, overall, it turned out okay. And throughout the whole film, I'm sitting here, it's like, man, when is she going to get her little ice picks? I was like, she everything else is kind of matched up with the actual video game, except for that. And then by the very end of the film, she actually gets them. So thought that was kind of cool. And then, obviously she gets her way off the island and she stops the bad guy, yada, yada. But at the very, very end, when she goes to get the trinket back that she sold to a pawn shop to get the money, she looks over and she sees her 2 iconic guns. And there's this cool little funny haha scene where she ends up getting both of them. And she's like, oh, are you going to take it? She goes, no, I'll take both of them. And she holds them up. And so it kind of leaves us where there might be a sequel. And I hope that there is. I hope this movie does make enough money, because I think people need to go see this movie, because it's paving the way of possibly starting to get some good video game movies. I think it's a passable grade. You know, I don't want to necessarily compare it to, like, you know, the first X-Men movie or Blade, but it is kind of in that wheelhouse. It is showing that you can still do your own thing, but yet follow the source material, make you believe that this character is that person. So guys, take this from someone who does not actually enjoy the current source material, but did really enjoy this film on the second viewing. Out of 5, I'm going to go ahead and give this a solid 3. Definitely room to grow. You know, just as long as the sequel kind of interacts a little more onto the puzzles and the actual tune rating, I'm in for the long haul. Guys, if you have seen this film, please let us know down below. Me and DPZ, we're always checking the comments. We love to conversate with you guys. Also on our Facebook channel, we love to conversate with you guys. And again, remember, if you're looking for us, it's the universe is spelled with a Y-O-U, because this is as much your channel as it is ours. And guys, thank you again for the love and support. And until next time, please like, share, and subscribe on the video. Please click the notification bell so you're part of our notification squad. And guys, until next time, we'll see you once again in the universe.